All right. Hello, Mr. Brian Inkland from where again?
City of San Antonio Fire Department.
Awesome. Now, do you guys have a rank over there? I've known you for so long, but I don't know if you have a rank in your department.
We do. We do. For arson investigation, we are the rank of engineer. The progression through the fire department starts as a tailboard or basic fireman, and then you promote to engineer. And then once you're at the engineer rank, you're qualified or able to apply for the arson division, which is where I'm at.
Okay, awesome. So you're Engineer Inkland. Is that the title?
Arson investigator.
Oh,
We
okay.
Yeah, we don't. Once once we moved or transitioned from the fire side to the law enforcement side, we kind of stay in that world. So it's uh, arson investigator.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, definitely matters.
Yeah.
All right. So Arson Investigator Inkland. Welcome. Thank you for taking time to talk to me today.
Okay.
Um, let's start with tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, my name is Brian Inclon. I've been with the city of San Antonio for just a little over 20 years. I became an arson investigator back in '09, uh, meaning I had to go through a selection process and then go through a whole police academy to become certified as a peace officer. And um, yeah, I've been here since '09. Prior to that, I did 4 years active duty Marines as a firefighter and weapon instructor, 5 years Reserve Army as a firefighter. I'm on my 12th year with the Air Force as a reserve firefighter, and uh, also spent a little bit of time with another smaller jurisdictional fire department in the city of Brownwood, about 2 years. So all together, almost 30 years of being in the fire and emergency services as in some capacity, either the firefighter at a station or the capacity I am now as an investigator on the
Wow.
law enforcement side.
Okay. Almost 30 years. That's a long time. That's quite the experience too, huh?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that I've dabbled and touched into just about every part of uh, the the public sector or the that you could do. I've been on the ambulance for a couple of years. I've done truck work. I've been, for those who know, truck work, engine work, the hazmat rescue side. I've kind of touched all of it.
Wow.
Been blessed to have a well-rounded career.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You have the breadth and the depth of experience. That's awesome. So what got you into arson investigations? Is that something you've always wanted to do? How did you come about that?
Uh, when I promoted to engineer, there were different areas that we could go into. You can either, drive one of the apparatus, of course, an engine or truck. Um, there were opportunities to go to be an instructor at academy or our dispatch center. And I spent a couple of years on the ambulance as an engineer, and I wanted something different. I had always looked at law enforcement as an option of something I could do, but I didn't want to leave my comfort zone of the fire department. And this was a opportunity to do both, to get into the world of the after the incident. We always we see things in the middle of an incident per se. There's the build up and then the actual insult or the injury or the accident. And then there's a part where we show up on this end of it, either fire, police, EMS, and then there's the aftermath. Well, I wanted to know the aftermath. I wanted to know everything after the fact, after the the trucks have picked up their hoses and done their overhaul, uh, to do the investigation side of it, and this gave me the opportunity to do that.
Awesome. So let's talk shop.
Sure.
um I guess what comes to mind what in your arson career field so far, have you had a memorable fire, something that just pops out?
Uh, Unfortunately, yeah. Um, we had our only City of San Antonio fatality in a fire. We've had fatalities in the past. The department's been around for over 100 years, uh, and we've only had one where a firefighter had lost his life in a fire about 5 years ago, a little over actually. And I was a part of that investigation as to the origin and cause and all that went uh, into that incident. When you look at the totality of it, the type of structure, the response, the um, the operations side of it, how the fire crews functioned that day, and then all of the aftermath, taking it apart and uh, developing uh, the whole picture, more or less, cradle to grave, as some would know in the hazmat side of it. Uh, what led up to the fire, what caused the fire, what caused it to spread the way that it did, and all the factors in between, and then of course following through with uh, making an arrest, and it should be going to trial here pretty soon. But yeah, that's one in particular. We refer to it as the Ingram fire. That's that was the street address it was off of was Ingram. So that's kind of how we base a lot of our fires on is the street address or the street name.
Yeah. Now, since it's still ongoing, I guess you can't really talk too much about it, but I would imagine it's something that can be used as a maybe like a case study.
Uh, yes and no. I mean, every fire, if you look at it, could be used as a case study because they're all unique. They have their own little fingerprint, if you will, as to some aspect of the fire or the investigation, subsequent investigation to its origin and cause. Um, this one in particular, just more over that it was a fatality, and we go a little more in depth when we investigate a fatality fire. So yeah, I would encourage anyone who's delving into understanding a lot of significant fires to look at those that have been earmarked as ones that were fatality fires.
Mm, okay. Ingram Fire, is that right?
Yeah.
For people who want to Google it. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I know it's something that you're currently working on. Um, we can't really talk too much about it. Let's talk about restaurants. Fight Kitchen Fires Limited is, dealing with restaurants and vent hoods and keeping, restaurants fire safe. Are you able to tell us if you've responded to any sort of eating or drinking establishment fires?
I have. To be quite honest, we don't make a lot of those. If a fire, the way it functions for us is the the officer on scene, whether it's a lieutenant or captain or acting officer, or all the way up to a battalion chief, if it's large enough of a fire, if they are unable to determine a cause, if they are unable to determine where or how the fire started, they will call us, the arson division. If they feel the fire is intentionally set, they'll call the arson office. So um, more often than not, kitchen fires they don't call us out. They kind of chalk it up to an accidental per se. Um, that's of course not the end of it. Uh, what I mean by that is there's two sides to an investigation. There's the side that we are on, the law enforcement, the civil side, and then there's the civil side or the uh, the general public side. So the insurance companies they hire their own investigators. The only difference between myself and a fire investigator for an insurance company is we handle the law enforcement of it. If there's a crime that's been committed, then we'll follow through with the prosecution on that side of it. The other side, the insurance companies will hire their own investigators who will go into more detail into a fire. We need to figure out if the fire was intentionally set, if it meets the articulation of what's considered a an offense. Here in Texas, we have the Texas Penal Code, and 2802 is a number reference to that, but that's what we work under for arson. And if the fire damage meets that criteria for a violation of the law, then we'll process them through. Uh, I don't have to specifically tell you which wire failed or which component did not function appropriately to do my job. I just have to be able to identify the origin and cause in a generalized state, and to know whether or not it was intentionally set or not. With that, a lot of restaurant fires that you run into are maintenance issues. If you're going to have a fire in the kitchen, it's going to be something typically to do with a failure on the part of the restaurant staff or the owner, management, in maintaining their equipment. Because kitchens in the last 30, 40 years have been way more regulated, more controlled, and you just don't have as many fires in a kitchen as you would have maybe 40, 50 years ago.
Mhm.
So for that reason, we typically don't get called out to them.
Okay. You said something interesting, and I want to kind of elaborate a little more. You said the investigators go out and they investigate whether or not it was like criminal. But then you also mentioned that the insurance companies go out. Are they are they looking at your report? Are they doing their own thing? Why are the insurance companies doing their own investigation if an authority figure already said that, hey, the origin of the fire was this?
We are totally independent of each other. We know of them, they know of us. Aside from that, we do not go and directly speak with these investigators. We don't want to influence their investigation, and we don't want to be influenced by theirs. We are independent. Um, they are hired by the insurance companies um, to come up with their own processes and uh, validate the necessity to pay out a claimant or not. So it's one of those push and pulls of if the insurance company can prove that they're not at fault, or the insured is not at fault, or whatever the case is, they're looking to do their job. If that
Mhm.
means not to pay out, or to um, not necessarily shift blame, but for example, you have a fire in a kitchen in a home, and we rule it as accidental, right? Say it's an appliance, it's a microwave, and the insurance company is going to want to find out, why did that microwave fail? I don't need to know why it failed per se. If it was intentionally tampered with, then yes. If it was a mechanical or electrical issue, that's not my issue anymore. I wipe my hands and move on to the next case. The fire investigator for the insurance company will look into that. They'll take that microwave and tear it apart, and look for anything that may have been an issue with that device or that uh, appliance. If they can prove that it was the appliance, then they'll go after the make of that appliance. So there's a whole rabbit hole, if you will, that private fire investigators work within, that we don't.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll definitely have to follow up with that on the insurance side. So, as an investigator, I think you're better positioned to answer this question. So, when it comes to fires, some people think that a fire can't happen and go unnoticed. So, for example, you can't have a fire in a building with the building being occupied without people noticing, because you'll either feel the heat, you'll smell the smoke. But yet, we hear often that there's occupants inside buildings or restaurants while there's an active fire, a big fire, not just a small kindling happening. How is that possible?
That's a pretty easy one, and that to me is one of the touchier types of fires that I will definitely uh, spend a lot of time focusing on. And with that said, it's apartment fires and multi-story structure fires, just some fires in general that you're referring to in general is specifically saying how can they go unnoticed? Voided spaces, the spaces in between the floors, the spaces in the attic and the ceilings, the drop down ceilings. Um, those are prime areas for fires to go unchecked. Apartment complexes have so many different occupants living in them. Fire happens late at night. There's a um, in a area that's not being managed per se. It can spread easily. I've been on plenty of fires in my career where you enter into a structure, heavy smoke, maybe sometimes there's not any smoke, but the fire is an avoided space in the ceiling area that you just can't see. And it goes unchecked and it just keeps developing. It's got plenty of oxygen, plenty of fuel, plenty of room to spread. Um, those are the most damaging because you can't see them. You can't put a stop to it unless you start really tearing down ceilings, tearing apart walls, and going on more of a like a scavenger hunt or going down the uh, the destructive path of trying to find out where the extent of that fire has gone to. But it is very common. It is very common to have fires that go unnoticed, unchecked until it's almost too late, until the structure is almost destroyed.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think that um, not considering someone setting this on fire, that fires can happen by other means, whether it's friction or radiation or malfunctions. So, I mean, is that to say that we're not safe with ACs in our, or water heaters in our roofs in our houses, or ACs in the top of buildings? Are we should be extra careful because of that, or I mean, that just basically means we could be involved in fire at any point.
I feel that we are in a point in our society and in this time, this I hate to say, this stage in our lives of uh, construction and so forth, but we are really safe if you hire the right people, if they're meeting the codes and they're staying compliant, they're following policies and protocols and procedures. Everything is geared to where we've learned from our mistakes. We've learned that there is an appropriate way uh, to do duct work, where we've learned is the appropriate way to maintain your duct systems or your ventilations or your exhaust systems. Um, it is safe. It's when you don't manage and maintain, you don't take care of those items. You watch a YouTube video and try to install something yourself, or you get your cousin's brother's neighbor who did it a few weeks earlier to step in for a lower bid, less expensive method of installation or maintenance. That's when you're going to run into problems. But for
Hmm.
the most part, a professional system, you're not going to see those types of problems. It's the systems, it's the areas of neglect, of um, uh, not attending to the basic needs of compliance. That's when you start having the problems. But for the most part, no, it's a pretty safe environment to be in now than
Okay.
say in the 60s and 70s and before.
All right. Just want to make sure no one's freaking out, and
Yeah.
we're not thinking we're gonna have fires above us and not know about it. Okay, so when it comes down to restaurant owners, what piece of advice do you have for restaurant owners to help avoid a fire in their kitchen?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. Kind of just touched on that a second ago. Maintenance and staying compliant. If you get any piece of equipment that you have that has um, any type of directions as to scheduled maintenance, making the repairs, anything along those lines, stay on top of it. Don't allow some fly by night person come in and give you a quick fix to something that is detrimental to your operation, your restaurant, your kitchen, your appliances. You know, hire reputable people that know how to make the appropriate repairs and do the appropriate maintenance. Don't cut corners. Um, yeah, that's basically about the extent of what I would advise anyone to do. Just stay proficient, stay on top of it.
That's very wise advice. So, how can restaurant owners and the public help with you and your job?
But I again doing what I just mentioned, staying on top of it.
Doesn't
Some
that put you out of business, though?
uh no, unfortunately that really doesn't. We don't respond to too many of those fires. We'll respond to a fire where it's neglect of some kind. If an inexperienced officer doesn't put all the pieces of the puzzle together or doesn't do enough questioning. I can't tell you how many times I've been to a fire in a garage where a homeowner bought a water heater and instead of paying or having someone professionally install it, they do it themselves.
Mm,
And later that evening or the following morning, we're there doing an investigation to a water heater fire. Um,
okay.
so it's a situation like that where I've been to where yeah the general public can help by doing that by doing things appropriately.
Hire the professionals, follow the guidelines, the rules, regulations, and
Yeah, you know,
avoid.
I mean, I've been on two fires over the last couple of years where the pilot light from a water heater was ignited by the fumes from someone doing auto repair work in the garage.
Oh,
Garage
wow.
door down, not venting. It just takes the appropriate amount of fuel to air mixture, and you've got the ingredients for fire to spread quite easily, to
Yeah.
ignite and spread quite easily.
Wow. Well, those are all the questions I had for you today. Was there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Uh, no, just going back to what I mentioned earlier. Just uh, take care of yourselves, um, do things appropriately, don't cut corners, and hopefully I won't have to see you.
Hopefully. All right. Well, investigator Brian Inklin, thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next time.